Once you've ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Devon. It is vampirism, and there's a host of damned souls at Pelham House.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
Well, he's dead. Can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Hi everybody, this is Irene and Andy, the host of the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show of the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And tonight with me is my co-host is Andy Mercer.
Hello, yes, stepping in for good old Mark. A little busy at the moment, so you have me instead. I'm sorry about that, guys. If you're looking forward to hearing Mark's dulcet tones, you have to wait till another week.
Oh God, I hear his dulcet tones every day shouting at me over the blasted Skype.
Oh dear.
Yeah. No, Andy's standing in for Mark because Mark's rather busy for the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. Thank God I get a break from him. And so, yeah, Andy, you're one of the producers at the radio show, aren't you?
I am indeed.
Yep.
Bit in the background these days. I have my own show, which I have put on hold for the time being. I am hoping to bring it back in the new year. But for the time being, I'm sitting in the background doing a bit of work for the other shows. And, of course, I am still uploading everything onto YouTube, which is always takes me a bit of time to get them done. But at the moment, we're actually up to date for the first time in quite a while. So I'm quite pleased about that. But, of course, as soon as the next couple of days go by, I'll be behind again to get back to YouTube. But it's all good fun.
Oh, yeah. So we've got a YouTube channel out there.
We have indeed, yes. We now have our own direct URL as well, which is quite nice because, you know, YouTube at first you get YouTube / lots of letters and characters, but once you've been on long enough, have enough uploads, you get your own dedicated web address. So we are now on YouTube /C / Paranormal UK Radio Network. So you can find us that way. Apparently the C is for a channel, which is really irritating having this little letter C in the middle of the name, but that's why it's there. So it is youtube.com /C / Paranormal UK Radio Network. So you can find us.
Or, Andy, just put us in the search bar, Paranormal UK Radio Network, and we should come up.
We will indeed. We'll pop up and you can to all our wonderful shows and listen to us for hours and hours. There's about 300 hours of shows or something along those lines. There's a lot of them, so keep you busy.
Now, people, I have to behave myself today because I am in the presence of one of our producers.
Who's that? Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
That's you.
What I really neglects to mention, of course, is she's one of the owners, so she's the boss, really. We're just minions.
Yeah. Yes, I'm an owner. Okay, right, Andy, did you see about that woman?
Which one?
Oh, this woman, Amanda, she's getting a divorce from this 300-year-old ghost she married.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Did you? He was a pirate.
Oh, my hearties.
I shouldn't laugh, people. No. I shouldn't laugh because the poor woman had to get a divorce. They are split. They're separated now. She married him. Well, she married him. Well, she married a flag.
Yes, absolutely.
A skull and crossbones flag, and the ring was put on the end of a candle, apparently. But according to her, you know, she wasn't happy with just casual sex. She wanted commitment, so that's why she married him.
But he's a pirate. He'd be out on the high seas.
He's been dead 300 years.
Well, there is that minor point. Apart from that, because he's out on the high seas.
Yeah.
Raiding and stealing gold and burying and that sort of thing.
Oh, I don't know. But she had an active sex life with him, apparently. So, there you go.
Well, you did mention a candle, but we won't go any further than that.
You got to feel sorry for her, aren't you?
Well, seriousness, these people probably do need a bit of psychiatric help, actually, let's be perfectly honest. But
well, she made her 15 minutes of fame in the newspapers.
That's the other reason why people do these daft things, of course, isn't it? It's an opportunity to get your name in lights and be remembered as a loony for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff.
But, she did say in it that, they were dating. They've been dating for some time before they got married. And they had their usual rows, believe it or not.
That is very disturbing, let's be honest. That is just...
It's disturbing, isn't it? I bet he wasn't around half the time.
Well, no, he's on the high seas, shivering his timbers and all that.
Yeah, that's the trouble, you see. If your fella's not about, well, what can you do?
Oh, let's not get into that sort of discussion right now. Scare people off. I think a very different kind of radio show.
All right, then. Yeah. So, would you like to interview? Listen to me. And I've only had one glass of port.
Oh, Lord.
Before we do anything else, do you know something, people? I got absolutely tiddly.
Oh, my Lord.
Totally tiddly yesterday. I was making a Christmas pudding. And all the alcohol you have to put in, you put in, well, I used black rum because I didn't have any vodka. So I used black rum and stout, and I poured myself a glass of port, and then I had a rum, and then I had to drink the last of the bottle of stout because it would have gone flat. Anyway, I'm not used to drinking, and I'm allergic to alcohol. So that, with the antihistamines and one thing or another, I was out of it. I was out of it.
It's 2 weeks before Christmas and you're already getting drunk. That's really not good.
Well, to tell you the truth, what I drank, because I am not used to drinking, and the amount I drank would have more than likely been about 2 glasses to somebody else. But I was absolutely slaughtered. Literally slaughtered with it. So don't go making a Christmas pudding, people. They're dangerous.
Don't let Irene make it for you, at least, anyway. Oh dear, but we really should get to our guest. He's probably sitting there thinking, what a bunch of idiots am I talking to tonight?
Yeah. Okay, then. Are you going to introduce? See, I'm saying it again. Are you going to introduce?
You're still drunk, aren't you? It's got to be like you're still drunk.
Take me
I think I should let you take the privilege of that little act. That's your job.
No, I'll let you do it.
You're the voice of radio. You go ahead.
Well, okay, people. Our guest tonight is a brilliant man, one that I admire quite a lot, and he goes around chasing ghosts. He doesn't marry them, but he chases them. It's the ghost chaser, Richard Case.
Hi, Andy, and hello, Irene. And I think I want some of that Christmas pudding. That sounds great.
Yeah.
It's the Ghost Challenger, by the way, Eileen.
Oh, yes.
Irene, yeah. Sorry, I'm calling you Eileen now, so maybe I have had some.
Oh, it's one of them nights, honestly. Yes, yeah. Ghost Challenger, people. Sorry, he challenges ghosts, not chases ghosts. No, it's Amanda, the one that married the ghost that chases
she was the one that was doing the chasing.
Yeah. Okay, Richard, how are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I was very intrigued by that story about the pirate, though. That
300-year-old. He's a bit older.
Well, yeah. I mean, and you said to him about a divorce. They're looking at getting a divorce.
Apparently yeah.
Good grief. Yeah.
The marriage just didn't work out.
Yeah. Oh well. There we are.
There wasn't a lot in it, actually, to tell you the truth.
It is just the age-old hunt for the 5 minutes of fame, or 15 minutes according to Andy Warhol, but I think there's too many of us now. Can only be 5 minutes of fame? But it's definitely one of those cases of, so my name's in the press, that'll do me fine. I'll get radio shows, I'll get interviews, and I'll make a few quid, and there we go. Wonderful.
What makes it worse, she spent about 600 or 6,000, I think it was 6,000 euros, having tattoos done, having her hair put in dreadlocks, just so that she looked like a pirate as well.
It's very expensive then.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought. I mean, we're sitting there having a laugh about this, but what if she actually genuinely really believes that she really is talking to a ghost?
Well, maybe she does, because she spent a fortune on a wedding dress by the looks of it. Because there's photographs of her in a wedding dress, and the bridesmaids are all dressed the same. There's 4 bridesmaids.
Well, I've got a few...
And the flag. Well, he was pretty tarted up as well, the flag.
Absolutely, yes. And that candle as well we were talking about too.
Yeah.
Well, I know a few colleagues who deal with abnormal psychology, so perhaps they will be able to help her, but...
Yeah, it does come to mind a few, I know.
Somewhat, yes.
Anybody wanting to read the story, it's actually on the Paranormal UK Radio Network page on Facebook.
Oh, dear.
Okay. Right, so back to Richard.
Yes.
You've been a busy boy, haven't you, Richard?
I certainly have, yes. I've recently been doing, I would say, locked in at Clankayak Four Manor, if I pronounce that right. Left in there for the night to see if I found anything with my lantern, and I should explain.
Yes, I think you better.
I better explain about lanterns. Talking about pirates, you're going to start wondering what lanterns are. No, as the Ghost Challenger, I'm known to be, apart from what I do as a paranormal researcher, just for a bit of fun, they leave me alone in haunted buildings. And I go back to the old kind of Elliot O'Donnell, Harry Price type of days, and I have the old lantern, no big equipment, and they follow me live and watch me as it happens.
That sounds fascinating. I love that kind of old-fashioned approach. I mean, I've been investigating ghosts myself for many years, and I have gone from having lots of equipment to video recorders and audio stuff to pretty much nothing. I've given up all of that. I much prefer that more real experience of actually being in a location with nothing other than a good torch and maybe a notepad just to record whatever happens. So I like that kind of approach. So the most recent one, what happened? Anything really interesting?
Well, it was... a lot of people kind of saw things happening as they were watching it. And one thing that was interesting, the funny thing was, the night before I did the challenge, you know what it's like doing a radio network. You're trying to get the right recording equipment. And I bought this brand new microphone for my iPhone. And it didn't work because I got an iPhone 10. That's progress for you. It didn't connect, didn't work properly. So when I was actually at the location, I suddenly, it sounded like something was thrown. I don't know if Irene saw that, but I was there and it just sounded like something dropped by the side of me. And there was this microphone. And I thought, well, that isn't my microphone. And I thought maybe that's what they do when they take people around the museum. And people said to me, well, it wasn't by the side of you when we looked back. It was, just appeared there, and it seemed like it was thrown from some direction. So that was interesting. I kind of smarted that a little bit because it's the sort of thing my late father-in-law would probably have done. He probably said, you're looking for a microphone, here's one here, and I'll chuck it your direction.
That is interesting, yeah. Where was this place again?
It's Clankayak, if I can pronounce it properly, Clankayak Four Manor, which is not far from, I think it's Nelson, it's near Ystrad in South Wales. It's an old manor house, Tudor house, built in 1530 by the Pritchard family. It's been on certain TV programmes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right, okay. I'm sorry about the feedback, people, but I am still working from the family room as my office is still not around, so I've just given the bird a piece of fruit to shut him up. Any squawking or snoring, it's my animals, okay? Sorry about that.
We do occasionally have this almost haunting, ghostly sort of snoring sound can appear on shows, and that's actually Irene's dog. So if you hear strange noises of those, man, don't be concerned by it at all. But I just want to sort of take you right back to the beginning, Richard. I'm always fascinated to hear how people got into the whole ghost hunting paranormal world in the first place. How did you get involved?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange question, not strange question, sorry. It's because I had feedback then. I got a bit lost there. I heard my own voice then, so I know the feedback was... it's strange, really, how I did get into it. I kind of remember as a child, I went to one of the places I went was my granddad's old farm down in Dorset, and he was forever telling me ghost stories, and I loved I was always like, oh, go on, Grandad, tell me a story. And he told me this story about that he had seen my nan, or his wife's figure, at the top of this staircase where I was staying. And the funny thing was, it was a winding staircase. Now, as a child, you can imagine I used to walk up that winding staircase and my hand used to be over my eyes because I did not want to see whatever may be at the top of the staircase. But as I had that kind of feeling of, apprehension as a child, I also felt excitement with it, and it never really left me. And as I got into my teens, I started to read a magazine called by the Unexplained, I think it was. Oh, yeah. It was out at the time. And they talked about electric voice phenomena and all the various things. And I started to try that myself. And I just got interested from that. It just, I was almost had it from childhood. So it's how it really began.
Always fascinating, the spiral staircases always kind of conjure up gothic mansions in my mind, that sort of metal things you're going up, you're not quite sure what's on the next level. And of course, like old castles that have spiral stairs as well, which are for defence, of course, going up and going down. So it is that kind of atmospheric kind of thing anyway, isn't it? That sort of experience, definitely.
Do you know, I remember when I was a kid, my auntie lived in Glasgow in the tenement buildings that were in the Gorbals.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a spiral staircase in this place where she lived, and we used to play on it as kids because it was absolutely a curly staircase, big curly staircase, slide down the banisters and things like that. Yeah, I love them. Yeah. I had a spiral staircase in my house in London, but it was a small one, not one of these ones that went up a tenement building, but still. Okay, so you had a lot of fun then.
Yeah, I think
Growing
also.
up.
Yeah, I think it was having a very. I guess my granddad was like me, really. He liked to tell a good old story, and not that I invent anything, but I do sometimes enjoy the telling the stories. A little bit like Ellie O'Donnell, the old ghost hunter kind of thing. Not, people do elaborate on things and exaggerate, but if I know a good ghost story, if ever I've taken people out on an event, then I'll tell them the history and tell them a little bit later on what's been going on there, and sometimes it's just enjoyable thing to do, really, just to see their reactions.
Absolutely.
So Richard, how did the challenging bit come along then?
Well, I did have a group a long time ago, and the way groups are, it's very difficult to get groups motivated now. I think they're it's something you do kind of initially in your spare time, and you probably know of this when you get a group of people together and trying to get them to go out on date, certain dates and everything is quite difficult. So I suddenly thought, why don't I do this on my own? And I thought, well, okay, do it on your own. But what can you do that's different? And I thought, it is difficult to find anything now. You've got all these TV shows and all these other things. And I thought, well, I kind of challenge it in the sense that I say, right, this is a haunted location, send me in there, see what goes on. So the Ghost Challenger name came from that, really. And that's how it really started, was just, let me go in the place, you watch me on through our links and see what you see. You be the armchair investigator, and I'll be the old-fashioned ghost hunter going there, experience it. It's never my other research I do is more serious, obviously, because if you're doing something like that, you've got to have witnesses, you've got to have it all measured properly and done properly if you're going to do a proper investigation. So it's a little bit, I'll say tongue-in-cheek, that sounds like it's made up, but it's a little bit of fun with it as well, sort of fun elements to it.
Yeah, but I think it's more interesting to watch someone wandering around a haunted building without all the paraphernalia.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely agree with that.
And but I've watched a couple of the things that you've done, and I really enjoyed it. As a viewer, I enjoyed it.
Thank you. That's the thing. I think what I found was getting away from this. You've got the infrared lights, the TV's got all that, and as you know, everything. Sometimes I'll do the event, and I mean, like the last event I did, hardly anything happens. And I think that's the danger we have nowadays. People say, well, if nothing's going to happen, it's going to be boring. So then there's this, dare I say it, dramatization that sometimes goes on with
very much so.
certain things. And, why do we need that? The truth is, very little does happen when we go out on these investigations.
Well, that's it. And, everybody knows, any paranormal investigator knows this, that it doesn't fire off like it does on most television shows, one thing after another happening. It takes hours and hours and hours. And then you've got to go through all the footage and the recordings. And, crumbs almighty. It's can be a bit tedious at times.
Yeah. It's, I often say to people, it's a little bit like fishing, fishing. And, and when you say that to people, because there is a different appetite now, isn't there? There's different audiences, I think. You've got the ones that go on these events that want the thrills and everything to happen. And then you get the ones that want to seriously investigate and see if life does go on after death. And they're different kinds of audiences. And but when I do an event for charity, I'll say to people, if you really want to see something horrific happen, then watch a horror movie from Hollywood or Universal or whatever.
I think that's been one of the problems. Certainly, I've been involved, again, we've talked before, for a number of years, and before really the things like that TV program we just didn't mention, before they even started. And we did notice that working with companies like Fright Nights I was involved with, it was, a good crowd of people would come along and they'd have an expectation, of course, it was nothing too spectacular. But once that program really got going, one, they had far more events because there was such a high demand, but there was also the problem of the expectation of spectacular things every occasion. And almost, you'd say at the beginning, we do say we can't guarantee anything's ever going to happen. People still complain bitterly as well if
they do.
It happened. It's like, well, we did say, we're not going to magic things up for you. So it's a real double-edged sword. I found it made a much greater interest, but also much too high an expectation, which was a real shame.
Yeah, very much so. And as we know as well, that sometimes anything that does happen often happens when you're not looking or when you're not even seriously investigating.
Absolutely.
You could be having a little conversation about what I'll have for tea, and then suddenly, bang, crash, what was that,
Absolutely.
And it's like they're curious or something almost, why have you gone quiet? So,
well, I must admit, the best piece of video footage I've ever recorded was actually recorded by my wife, and we didn't know it at the time. It was only checking the footage afterwards that we actually spotted it. But at the time, we had no idea this was going on. I'll talk about it another time, but it's a brilliant piece of video of a shadow figure, basically a shadow on a wall, clearly human-shaped moving, and there's nobody in the room at all.
Yeah.
So it's like we didn't see it at the time ourselves. So that's the kind of thing I find quite amazing as well. With, as you say, almost like you're ignoring them, so you do something because you're not really looking. What would you say was the most unusual or amazing or spectacular thing you've personally experienced?
There was I've mentioned this before on another show, and I do use it as an example. It's a bit of a bizarre one, really. I did a local place that we visited, and we used to use, it's an old, I can't give away where it is, but it's an old church, and there used to be a big house nearby, and we used to use the big house nearby to use the toilets at night because there was none in the church. And it was a care home, so this kind of explains a little bit where I'm getting onto. Well, one night we were in the church, and this person I'm with said, "I'm getting the name Mary," and I thought, well, this is unusual. You're not known to be a medium or psychic, and you don't normally come up with names at all. So I said, "Oh, well, that's interesting. You've got the name Mary." And suddenly I heard a voice out in the graveyard, and I looked out, and what I recall is him saying, "I'm looking for a grave." And she said, "What's that?" I said, "I don't know, but it sounds quite freaky to me. There's a guy out there looking for a grave. Is this, someone having a laugh?" Well, looked out, and there's this old gentleman. So naturally, one assumed that he'd come from the house next door where these people sadly, got dementia and various things. So I said, let's walk you back. So I walked this gentleman back. Remember, he was very well dressed, and it was a bit unusual. But he was carrying a painting, an oil painting. which again was unusual. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, it's the Virgin Mary. I always take her when I go to the graveyard. Now, when he said the name Mary, that made me shiver because she had said the name Mary.
Yeah.
We walked him back to the house, and the lady comes to the door, the nurse where we use the toilets, and she said, I said, he's outside. She's kind of, do you want to use the toilets? She didn't really acknowledge him, and he went upstairs. I said to the woman afterwards, do you know, she hardly acknowledged him. He went upstairs. We need to go back. Did we actually experience a ghost? You know, what was that we experienced? I mean, I did go back, and it was very difficult to find the girl that was on duty, and I didn't want to get them in too much trouble because obviously they should have been. But no, it was bizarre. So that was a bizarre example of something occurring. It's not usual you get that.
No.
Wow, that would be absolutely fantastic if he was a ghost.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because people say that they're like you and I, don't they, when they see him sometimes? I've never had that, but I know people have said I've seen.
I have.
Yeah,
I have. Yeah, I had somebody, my airport visitor. Do you remember that one, Andy?
Yes, absolutely. But
yeah.
By all means.
Oh, I can't.
I'm intrigued.
Yes. I'm first time hearing the show. They want to know these things. You got to tell the story.
Okay. I was going to my cousin's funeral in Glasgow, and we had to get to Bristol Airport because we had an early flight out to Glasgow. We were going up to Glasgow and returning on the same day. And it was about, we left the house about 1:30. By the time we got to Bristol, it was about 3:30. We got lost. We literally got lost in the lanes after we come off the motorway. We got totally lost in the countryside. Yeah. And we were driving along, and I was panicking because I knew that we had to be at the airport a certain time before the plane took off and all that crap. Anyway, there we are, going through these country lanes in the middle of winter, 4 o'clock in the morning now, 4 o'clock. No lights, no nothing, and all of a sudden we saw this old man walking along. So I said to my husband, stop and ask him the way. So he did. He asked him which way to go to the airport, and the old man said, but the only way I can explain it is to show you. And he climbed in the back of the car.
Yeah.
Before we could even say, well, get in, he just climbed in. Anyway, we gets to the airport and everything. He hardly spoke except to give us directions, take that road, take this road, one thing or another. We gets to the airport, and just before we were heading to the short stay car park when he said, but you can let me out here now. I said, well, how are you going to get back? Because, we'd done about 15 miles.
Sure.
He said, don't worry. He said, just let me out here now. So we let him out, right? And I took my eyes off him for a couple. We said goodbye and thank you. And then I took my eyes off him for a couple of seconds and looked at my husband. He looked at me. When we looked back, he'd gone, disappeared. And there was no way he could have been...
Yeah.
It just vanished, totally vanished.
It's something you hear of, isn't it? I mean, have you seen things before, Irene? Or
yeah, loads of stuff. But let me finish. Right, we go to we got airplane. We went to the funeral. We came back, and it bothered me all week. And the following weekend, I mentioned it to my husband, and I said, "Don't you think it was a bit strange?" He said, "Yeah," and I said, "Well, what did you actually see?" So he started describing the man, and his description of him was totally different to mine. Wow. He saw him in a dark jacket. I saw him in a light coloured jacket, like a light grey. He said he was very smart, wearing glasses. I didn't see the glasses. He said his hair was well kept. When the man I saw in the back of the car looked like he'd been dragged through a bush, but he looked like Ken Dodd. His hair was sticking up all over the place. Strange. My husband said he had a backpack with him. I said, no, he didn't. He said he had a torch. I said, no, he didn't. And what was this old man doing out 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter, in the middle of the countryside, walking along the lanes? Huh?
Yeah. Well, it's the same with that man that I saw in the graveyard, even though, there was that care home next door. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was very, very unusual. And we'd been there a lot, and we hadn't seen this before. So you're right, it is a strange occurrence, and people have these occurrences. And I wonder, I don't know, Andy and Irene, if you've ever thought on this. I wonder if some people, though, I don't know. I mean, I saw something then, because normally I don't see anything, and I wonder if some people do see things and other people just don't. I've often.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been on many investigations over the years, and that is definitely a phenomenon where 2 or 3 people absolutely say they've seen something, and one person I didn't see anything. I was looking the same way you did. I didn't see a thing. I've always been of the opinion these things aren't. We're going to get deep philosophy now, but I've always been of the opinion these things aren't just out there. That our minds play a huge part in what we see. There's a connection that they aren't entirely physically out there or entirely just in our heads. They're like a third space between the two. And if your mind is not of a certain mindset, then you won't experience stuff. You make loud noises that people have said, I heard that, and someone said, I didn't hear a thing. No, nothing. What are you talking about? It's like, well, you were there, but they don't hear it. It doesn't register for whatever reason. So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
but we both... Oh, darn it. Sorry, feedback.
No, you're fine. We're not hearing any feedback from you at all.
Oh, okay. Let's hope not. We both saw this man. Both of us saw this man, but we both saw different people.
Yeah,
we saw him differently.
That is strange.
Yeah.
That you both saw it differently. And that, again, begs the question of, why are you seeing it differently? If in fact it was a ghost,
Yeah.
Or why are you seeing it that way, and your husband's seeing it another way? That's an intriguing.
Yeah, and to be so fully interactive as well. Be so completely interactive, talking and responding as if they're physically there with you. That's the weird ones. Those are the stories I absolutely love. I've never had anything quite like Arian's experience before. I mean, I've certainly seen figures as clear as day and thought they're out of place. They don't belong there, but they're as solid as anybody. But they don't belong where you're seeing them. So I've had that experience before, but not that kind of communication. That's amazing.
Well, Andy, I felt uncomfortable with him being in the car because where did he come from? Why was he there? Sort of thing. And the way he just climbed in the car uninvited. So I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I kept turning around looking at him. He was there.
Yeah.
He was definitely there. And if he hadn't been there, we would never have made that plane and we would never have got to Glasgow to my cousin's funeral.
Yeah.
Wish you'd sort of poked him or something to see he was physically real as well.
Yeah.
And it's
I wish I'd touched him now.
almost interesting to find out if other people have had that or experienced that in that area, isn't it?
That's a good point, actually.
That's.
Well, I did Google it to see if there was anything like that. An old man in the country lanes or anything. Nothing. I couldn't find anything.
The Phantom Hitchhiker, that comes under that kind of myth kind of bracket of the
hitchhiker myth, yeah. But the point is, it did happen. We both saw him.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of these urban myths have bases in reality of some kind. One or two people experience something, then the story tends to spread. I mean, as we've talked before, there are urban myths that are just completely invented, like the Slender Man, those kind of things. But there are others that have got a basis in certain real experiences, and that the Phantom Hitchhiker is very much one of those. Gets in the back of the car, doesn't say anything, and then look back, they're not there anymore. But to be fully interactive and talking to you, and then just vanish, it almost begs it. We're talking transdimensional here, hopping one of dimensions.
One of the things I've been lucky to do is travel around the world this year. I went in January and went all around the world, and I was collecting stories from various people from different cultures.
Oh, fascinating.
And it came up time and time again about the Phantom Hitchhiker. I was in Hawaii, and this lady said her husband was driving out in Hawaii, and he saw in the mist, this figure, and he thought maybe it's the mist playing a trick on me, and then suddenly he saw the lady there and stopped. She got in the car. He was talking to her, and next minute he looked in the mirror and she had gone. And she said she had no reason to doubt his story. There was another one in Samoa. I went to a little village in Samoa, and they I think they call it it's Atu or A2. That's what a ghost is called in that kind of culture. And I started talking about, has anyone ever experienced this? And of course, a lot of places now have been Christianized, and they've had the Catholic Church go there, and going back some time ago, and they've lost a lot of their traditional beliefs. But this village girl turned around and said, "Can I have a quick word?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And she said, "Well, they don't like me saying it, but I saw the Atu. I saw this woman ghost, and she was in my village, and she appeared to me. So yeah, I mean, it's intriguing. This is all over the world that we're talking, regardless of beliefs and things."
Well, you said, sorry, Andy. Okay. Richard, you said a mist. There was a mist on this February morning.
Yeah.
There was a mist about.
But so is there? I mean, the skeptic would say, well, the mist. If you see a figure on the road, and it's a mist, then you could be imagining it. But
when he climbs in your car.
But when they climb in your car, no.
That does kind of throw it out the window, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and like I said, he didn't really talk. He didn't talk about himself or anything like that. It was just giving us. He was just giving us directions, and as we went through a couple of villages, he mentioned the name of the village. He'll say down the road till you get to such and such a village, and then turn right, and things like that. So, this
guy that we saw in the graveyard was very much the same. It didn't seem like you were talking to a. Obviously, I was got to be careful here because I'm thinking of, sadly, people with dementia and illness. But it wasn't.
Yeah.
My mum had that, so I'm aware of that illness. But it was as if, it was a different kind of conversation, and I think that's what you probably found with that man. It didn't seem right to me.
No,
and that's why it stayed with me. It just seemed, have I seen?
Yeah, and the fact that the woman that let you in didn't even take any notice of him.
Yeah.
It suggests he didn't see him. Obviously, that's if you were taking back an old person to where you think he came from,
this is what I.
Yeah, but that person would take that person and say, "Thank you very much. Come on, Fred."
Yeah,
exactly. I should imagine he would do that, certainly. Yeah, I want to hear a bit more about the world visit you've been doing, some of the more interesting stories that you came across in your travels.
Yeah, I mean, I did Alcatraz, and that was a knock off your list one. I've always wanted to do Alcatraz, and I spoke to the guys in Alcatraz, explained who I am, and they said,
did they lock you in?
Yeah, I said, can you put me somewhere where the tourists don't go, please? Because I'm a researcher. So they took me to the old part where it's supposed to be haunted, and they put me in a cell there. It kind of, maybe it was at that moment in time. I didn't really get much from that. It was a little bit like, the typical going into a prison over here, really. It's Alcatraz. I think that's in your mind. Oh, it's a massive place. You expect a lot. One place I did do was in Barbados. And that was fantastic. There's a vault there called Chase's Vault. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Oh, I think I've heard the name before. Go on.
It's where the coffins have been moved.
That's it. Yeah, that's what I know the name, yeah.
They put
I know it.
Yeah, they put them in the vault, and they've been moved or
They move around.
Yeah, and I thought, well, could that be earthquakes, stuff like that? But the stories are quite good with that, and I actually spent time alone in the vault, and that was quite eerie, and did feel a bit spooky, that one.
Did you see the coffins? Are they still there?
No, the coffins weren't there. It's been opened up, but this a lovely Caribbean guy said, go in there and I'll leave you there to see what you think. It's lost a lot of its atmosphere because obviously, sadly, like everywhere, people have gone there and become tourists, and this is Chase's Vaults, let's all go there sort of thing. So
it tends to lose a bit, doesn't it, when it's been open?
It does,
so much.
yeah.
Although I went to Greyfriars Cemetery. Have you been there in Scotland?
I was just going to mention that. Are you a mind reader, Andy?
Of course I am. You know I am, yes.
One place I want to go.
The Mackenzie Poltergeist.
Yes.
That's obviously, he's from my clan, the Mackenzie clan.
Yeah.
Have you been there? Richard, have you been?
No, I've not been. That's one place that's on my to-do list. That's definitely...
What I was going to say was, because even though it's been very heavily commercialised as tour groups and everything, I've stood in the Black Mausoleum with a group of people, and you could feel the atmosphere, not just because you know the stories, etc., but even in the afternoon, it still has quite a potent atmosphere.
Yeah.
It really does have it, so it's definitely the place to get to if you get the chance. Despite the fact that all the tourists go and everything else, it's still got its atmosphere, so that's one good thing about that place, definitely.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You go somewhere and you feel the atmosphere. When you've been doing this a long time, I'm not saying I'm psychic, medium, sensitive, or anything. I mean, probably from my experience as a child, I think we all are to a degree. But you go places and you feel it. You just feel, oh, this is a bit different.
Well, I'm also convinced the more you do these things, the more you do become aware of things and you do pick up more. Your mind becomes more attuned. Although I'll just quickly tell you a funny story, an absolutely true story. A guy I used to know years ago, when I used to run my own investigation group, he decided to get involved. The short version of the story was he was a salesman, sales rep, and he used to go around the country. He never had any ghostly experiences, never had anything happen to him, nothing paranormal or weird at all. Until his late 20s, he had a car crash and had quite a severe head injury. He was actually in a coma for a couple of days. He was really completely out of it. When he came round, basically he was psychic. He was picking up people's thoughts. He was seeing ghosts. All this happened after the head injury. Stayed perfectly sane. He had all kind of medical tests to check his brain was functioning normally. Everything was coming back as absolutely normal, but he was experiencing all sorts of paranormal experiences. And that's when he got in contact with me and said, these things are happening to me. Can you help? And absolutely, the guy becomes psychic and became a medium, basically. He was picking things up. He was like me. I never get sort of people's relatives. I get stuff from places, and he was doing the same kind of thing. We'd go into the same rooms, not say anything to each other about what we were getting there, compare notes afterwards, and we'll pick up exactly the same thing. So it's very strange how that can suddenly change for you.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of that, where people have had something life-changing in their life, and that's happened, and that is intriguing. It really is. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were psychic, Andy.
Well, I've had my moments.
Oh, you have your moments.
I have my moments. Yeah. It's one of those things, as I'm just saying, I've always been good with locations. I can get ideas of the past, of experiences and things that happened, and describe them to people. When I was on the ghost event, that's what I used to do. I don't get people say, oh, did you get my relative, my auntie, whatever. I don't pick up people. I pick up places and just get images, if you like, of the place and that sort of thing. And I've done tarot readings many, many years ago. Although I stopped doing all of that about 15 years ago now. And it sounds as weird as it might sound, like I switched off. I just don't get stuff anymore. I deliberately don't take any notice. And where you become more attuned by doing more investigations, I've found you can tune yourself out if you really don't want to do it anymore. That's my experience. Just with lifestyle changed in many ways, my belief systems have changed somewhat over my years of sort of become a bit more sceptical of stuff. But I think you can influence how your mind perceives things without intending to. If you do a lot of these ghost events, you do start to pick more up. If you decide you just don't want to listen anymore, you can. People used to say to me, well, how do you do it? What's it like? So it's like you've got the TV on in the background. You can listen to it or you can ignore it. And the more you ignore it, the quieter it gets. And that's really what I've found. I still get the odd sort of strange feeling in some locations. If I'm on holiday or something, go to an old house and I think, no, there's something going on. You speak to someone in the staff and say, oh yeah, no, we've got our ghost. And you think, oh, okay, that makes sense. But so have you found that? You found yourself more aware of stuff as you've done more and more of these sorts of events? Yeah,
strangely, it was unusual. I started to have almost... I know there can be a lot of explanations for why you pick up static and that, and you can look at it. But I almost get a feeling of like electricity or static around me in certain areas. And I started to get that the more I did, and I thought, what's going on here, But I went to a location, private location we did this week. And I was with the girl that's a medium and psychic, and I was walking around with her, and the other group was looking. I said, I don't feel it here. And I said, and I was walking along, I said, I think, oh, it's like, you know, when you rub a balloon on your tummy or that, and you go above your head, you get the hair sticking on. I said, I got a really strong feeling here of that, and it's like it's, you know, and I get that, which is, I don't understand what that would be. A medium would probably explain that to me. Maybe, and I've heard people say that the more you do it, the more you open yourself up to this kind of thing.
Absolutely. I'm very much of the mind that it's a lot of this is electromagnetic. It's almost as if the atmosphere itself records, like the old-fashioned videotapes through electromagnetic tape that would record events.
Yeah,
programs you're filming. Bad feedback there for a second. So it, like a videotape, records events. So the atmosphere itself kind of does. I mean, that's the thing with the sort of EMF meters. People often use investigations. They make whizzy noises, or the needle is sitting at a high level. They're sitting still, and it's on a high reading. Well, that doesn't prove anything. It just means there's an electromagnetic field somewhere. But if you move the thing around and it rises and falls as you're moving it, and that again just means you're moving to or from a particular power source. But if you're still and the meter rises and falls, something else has to be moving for that to happen, and that's the thing. And I do find, again, a lot of the time investigations, equipment starts to act funny and batteries suddenly die and lose all power. Now, strong EM fields can do that to electrical equipment. It can drain batteries. So I do think that is a large element of it. It's energy-based, real proper energy-based experiences. So yeah, the idea of that kind of static feeling of the balloon rubbed against your tummy and the hair sticking up, that definitely, I think, plays a part. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got to go and get a balloon and rub it against my tummy.
Yeah, just to give it a try.
See if I get a charge.
You might do, yes.
Yeah. Dear, I don't know whether you heard that. Did you laugh just now, Richard?
No, I heard a little laugh in the background. I did hear something.
Well, just round about when you said, I've got feedback, Andy.
Yeah. Funny. I heard the strange kind of echoey noise, but that was it.
Yeah, that's what I thought was feedback, but I did hear it.
It sounded like some little laugh.
Well, wouldn't be the first time, would it?
Oh, no, it wouldn't be the first time. No. Oh, Marcus, go away! He's telling me he's driving home now. Sorry about that. I'm interested. Anyway, right, where was we? So you have, besides going around the world, Richard, you've been to many, many places over here in the UK.
I have.
Manor houses, castles?
Yes, I've done the castles. I've even done a Clevedon pier, which was an unusual one. I was left on the pier all night. And that was because they saw somebody saw a fisherman. There was no one on the pier at night. Somebody took a picture, and the sad thing with this is I managed to debunk it. But basically, what they done, they took a photo, and it looked like a fisherman in the thing, and then it seemed like it disappeared. But we found out after me investigating, one of the fishermen confessed it was him on the pier that night fishing. But they had other things go on. They'd had noises like voices that night. I'd gone on there for the whole night, and I thought, well, you can hear the birds, the seabirds in the stairwell of the pier, and that could give the misinterpretation of people chatting. So there was nothing concrete, so I kind of put that down to that might be what they're experiencing. But it was an interesting one.
I think that must be one of the most spookiest places to be, stuck out on the end of the pier with the rolling fog coming in and the mist coming in off the sea and the noise. Oh, God.
Remember that film, The Fog?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about just then.
Yeah, that just came to mind psychologically as I was there, because it was on BBC Radio. If you see a man alone on the pier, it's the ghost challenger, not the ghost. And I thought, well, yeah, and a few fishermen suddenly appearing out of nowhere, which would be spooky.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, with seaweed hanging off of them.
Yeah.
No, you're from the West Country, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know Charmouth?
I know of Charmouth. Yeah. Yeah.
Many years ago, we took my son and my niece to Charmouth to stay in a caravan, and they wandered off up on top of the cliff face one evening, and was sitting up there, and they saw, and they swear blind they saw this. Now they were what, 14, 15 at the time, because when I found out they'd been up there, I'd done my nut about it. But they swear blind that they saw this galleon ship full sail out at sea.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And listen, Richard. The following day, I went into the gift shop, and they had books in there, Haunted Dorset and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And what did I find in the book? A bloody galleon.
Yeah.
That sails that particular part of the coastline.
See, that's another phenomena which I find really intriguing, and a lot of people don't really. Well, I guess we don't really look into those things. But when I was on the cruise ship, I was out in the middle of the, out in the Atlantic Pacific, and I was thinking, this ocean's quite creepy. If you think suddenly you may see, a ship suddenly appear out of nowhere, and it is a thing that does people do see, and it's another intriguing thing that I don't see a lot of people investigating much now.
Yeah, the ocean is a pretty spooky place at times. Well, you think about all the pirates and everything that were in that area as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You think it's 70% of the landmass is the ocean, so there are vast areas that just never get looked into. So absolutely, I had an old friend of mine who was in the Merchant Navy for some 40 years before he retired, and he actually went to university. I believe in his sort of early 70s, came to university. This is many years back, and I did ask him, have you had any strange experiences? And they said more of a case of mysterious lights in the sky that we couldn't really explain, rather than anything sort of ghostly with ships. But there was an occasion where they definitely could see something on the horizon that looked very much like an old ship, and so it just stayed on the horizon in great distance, but it had like tall sails, and it could have been someone sort of just a reconstruction of an old galleon. But he said we all saw it and all thought that doesn't look right. It looked almost out of place. So it was, he said, quite fascinating. But for him, it was more the odd lights at night, often not in the sky, as just seemingly hovering above the ocean, some distance away, but he said you could tell they weren't in the sky, they were actually hovering over the water, and then they just blank out and disappear. So again, ghost lights, they talk about ghost lights at sea that are just lights that are seen, so maybe that's what he was seeing then. But he said it was nothing ever big and dramatic, but he said there was a few things over the years that made us wonder, but that ship was the one that said he stuck in his mind, was you could see it on the horizon, but it was a long way off, and it was nowhere near their course, so they couldn't go and investigate.
Yeah, I think it is intriguing, because the other thing, when I was on the cruise ship, I thought, well, I'll just ask them if they've ever come across a haunted cabin. I mean, I won't give away the company, but they turned around and said, we don't let the public know, but there is a cabin that the staff will not go in. This gentleman died, and they will not go in there. Unfortunately, I couldn't go and investigate because safety at sea. I was not part of the crew, but I think sometimes there's a lot of things out there that aren't told to us that certainly is worth investigating.
Undoubtedly, there are people who have experiences that just don't want to talk about. I mean, people that work in old buildings and those kind of sites where you expect to have ghost experiences, that they'll say, "Oh no, nothing's ever happened here." Then you get a member of staff say, "Well, actually, when I was downstairs," you think, "Oh, okay, so things do happen here." So,
yeah, I expect they get fed up talking about it.
Well, often you usually find one member of staff who won't stop talking about it. I was went to a restaurant just recently, basically it was just a morning breakfast thing while we get the car MOT'd, and it was a very old building in Essex. It's near Brentwood in Essex, and the building said part of it goes back to the 1400s. It was an old man.
You'll have to send Richard there.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's one member of staff said, "Oh, we have an interesting ghost. He's haunted." She sort of sighed and said, "Go and talk to," I can't remember the woman's name. It was a slightly old member of staff, but we'll call her Mary. Go and talk to Mary about that. And she spent the next half an hour regaling all the ghost stories about the building, the things she'd seen, other staff members had seen. But it was like the way the woman who I spoke to sighed was like, "Oh, here we go, another ghost hunt." But yeah, it's worth investing. Brentwood, it's a Harvester now, but the middle part of the building is goes back to the 1400s. Might be worth investigating.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. There's so many. Sometimes I prefer, people do ghost hunts. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of these ghost hunt companies. You mentioned that you've done that. Sometimes what's unfortunate, though, is some of the places that the ghost hunts are done, beautiful locations, but the activity was very long time ago, and you've gone there and nothing's happening. I do find locations where I just go in and just say, "Have you got anything?" And it sounds strange to ask this. Have you got anything strange going on? It's okay. I am a paranormal researcher. It's okay to tell me, and they'll tell you the stories, and you go there and think, well, nobody really knows about this, and then you find out it's actually happening at that moment. And those places are quite intriguing because, you can go on these big events, go somewhere that's well known, like I went to Alcatraz, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Or it's not happening that night, but you go somewhere where it's very active and often not talked about. So yeah, that's quite intriguing.
Absolutely. What I often used to find as well, you've hired at a better known location to be written about, and the ghost stories are in the books, but the experiences people have on the night don't relate to the stories in the books.
Yeah,
find that quite fascinating as well, where it's just the activity is strange and it's different to what's supposed to be happening. It's like, oh, that's not in this book. That's what's supposed to happen. That's supposed to happen. Well, this is what's happening.
So, which is the most spookiest place that you've been to, Richard?
I think the spookiest place I've been to, when I did my challenge at Skirrid Inn in
Skirrid Inn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people go there, they say, "Oh, nothing happens. But I went there on my own as the ghost challenge, so I was there on my own. So it was the landlord said, "I'm gonna leave you." And, by the way, it's very difficult to get in these places on your own. I do it as a ghost challenger, so I have to say for these locations they don't often like people on their own, but they didn't.
You're drifting again.
I was privileged, to be given the opportunity. But when I went in the Skirrid Inn, they said, "We're going to leave. We're going to leave you on your own." And I felt it was more that I'd done it before on my own and it was fine, but this particular evening I didn't feel right. Something did not feel right, and I had it in my, just a feeling. And it got to one part of the evening where you've got the noose, the hangman's noose, going down the
staircase.
And it was quite a windy night, so it could have been the wind, but I'm sure it wasn't. You can see it. I've got a footage of it where I open the door and it just sounds like it's running up the stairs towards me, and I felt as if something was running towards me. I shut the door, stayed in there for the remainder of the night, gave up the challenge, and I had just an unusual feeling of fear, a real uncontrollable feeling that I couldn't continue. So that was quite a scary one. As to why, I don't know.
That's the one where Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, he's meant to have held court there many times and condemned people to be hung. That's right, isn't it?
I'm not sure if Hopkins was. I don't know the full history of. I know
he was in the most haunted one, anyway.
Yeah. I know Matthew Hopkins. I've been to the one I did also was Pendle Hill.
Oh yeah.
I was in Pendle Hill, and there I had to do locations around. I stayed in the. There's a funny story to that one as well, if I got time to say about it. But I stayed in. Well, you remember I think her name was Alice Nutter.
Alice Nutter.
Nutter. And I stayed in one of the places where one of the witches was born, and I went down to the place where the farm where a certain TV program was filmed because I wanted to get information. Went down to that lane, and I made the big mistake of parking because I thought it was all deserted down there. There was no one there. So I parked my car at the top, but I didn't realise I was blocking a driveway. And I get annoyed when people do that to my driveway at home, but this was like an old farm, and I thought it was deserted. There was no one down there. Yeah. Went down to the bottom to inquire, and suddenly I heard this big ruckus going on the top of the driveway. Got up to the top, and it was a farmer trying to almost break into my car and was getting a shotgun ready. And I only found out that he was a long relation of Alice.
Oh, wow.
And he lived up to the reputation of Alice. And he's known that if anyone goes near there that's not wanted after naturally, after all the publicity, he gets quite aggressive. So I was lucky to get away with there without being shot on the spot.
He was after your ghoulies to make you a ghosty.
Yes, definitely. And but one thing there was when I was out in the out near the woods. Yeah, people were watching it live again, and I mean, as you know, I'm an ex-policeman, so I made sure it was all proper. The camera was up on the car recording me, so hands-free, nothing on the camera, so they just to cover myself there. And it looked like a shadow came around the car, and I felt like it's my handbrake. Yeah. Because I couldn't reverse back to get away, but it was like something surrounded the car, so it did feel a bit creepy. But what I will say is a lot of TV has made a big thing of they've given out that place is evil. These are sadly women that were persecuted.
That's it. They were just ordinary people, actually. Yeah, and it was all to do with greed, money, and land snatching.
I mean, I'd imagine there'd be an anger, which I would understand completely. But all this about, evil witches, and we all know it's not like that. Witchcraft is not like that. And there's many people in the pagan beliefs that, it's just not as it's portrayed on these programs. And it's that kind of ignorance that sadly caused all the witch trials.
Well, as you were saying, land grabs as a way of getting rid of people you didn't like very much, call them a witch, and that was it, they're doomed. And of course, the Pendle Hill...
Yeah, and take their land.
Well, exactly. And Pendle Hill, of course, just been made famous again by Doctor Who, of all programmes, of course.
Yeah.
Truly dreadful suit as that one's been, but that's another story. Have you been to the same locations more than once and found the same results or different results?
Yeah, there is a location that I go to... I do have a small team that work with me. That's Chantel, Andy, and Shelley. They work with me, and Wayne helps me. He does all my videos. Just give him a mention. But basically,
Hello, Wayne. Hello, Wayne.
You know Wayne, do you?
No.
No, you
just saying hello.
Yeah, Wayne's great. He does a lovely spookanori. He does a good spookanori stories.
Does he?
Yeah. Well, basically, I been doing this location as a researcher, and I was saying let's go back there all the time and get used to the building and just keep going back there to see what we get. And we've had different things happen at different times and different things. And also what's interesting, we've taken different people there, and they've had the same experience without knowing what the other people have in that same place, So that's made it
interesting.
So that's made it interesting, and I know a lot of the history of the place, and it does make it intriguing. So, there is that side of me where I will go back and do proper investigations at a place and try and get the history and try and join the dots, as they say.
I think history is one of the best parts of these places. Knowing the history, seeing the actual buildings. I find that more interesting sometimes than sitting there waiting for a ghost to walk by.
Definitely. I mean, when I did another old shirt, church. They've got the church organ at the back of the church, and they've got all the school children's graffiti on there from 1941 and 1937, and they use the old compass to make the graffiti. You know, they used to kind of like, you know, poke the compass in and make the old dots, and it's intriguing just to read what these people put going back then, you know, and that's great because you're seeing them as they lived, and you know, the old graffiti is sometimes quite interesting.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's very much a time capsule, isn't it? The kind of thing.
It is.
Listen, yeah, gives a real insight into the sort of ordinary lives of people. We have so much history, often written by writers, obviously, and the researchers, but we often don't get a real feel for the average individual person's life. So that kind of thing gives you much more of an insight into what life is like for them. So yeah, definitely interesting.
I've carved my name in many a tree, in many a place, on many a brick wall, and well, yes, I've left that for future historians.
Yeah. and often you find the person that done that when we go to, say, an old church or an old place.
Yeah,
I mean, there was somebody there that used to maintain the church organ, and he's said I maintained it in 19, and he's coming up quite a lot, and you could see him as a teenager, older, and you're thinking, well, if anyone's going to be haunting this place now, because you know that person's no longer with us, then surely it's going to be that. So if anyone comes up with that name, it's quite interesting.
Yeah,
definitely.
So you do churches as well, then?
Yes, I do. I mean, I raise a lot of money for church conservation trusts, so you know, I'm very careful when I do that, because obviously there is there's got to be ethical ways of doing things, and you know, if I do a church, that is mainly to raise money for any church conservation, give the history of the church, tell a few of the stories, and just sit there and listen and that, but respect that it is an old church, and that respecting everybody's faith and beliefs, and that a little bit different when you're doing a pub or you know, somewhere else, because it can be completely different.
It's actually very unusual to get permission to investigate a church. They don't tend to allow us people into it normally. So.
Often it's very difficult. I think it's again your reputation and how ethical you are, you know, and you know. I
would imagine that I heard you briefly mention you used to be a policeman.
Yeah.
That probably helps as well.
I think it does. Not that any of my other colleagues were saints, mine, but
go on perception. That's good. So, do you know? I forget what they're called. Down Peaks, is it?
Sorry?
Do you know?
Oh yeah, I know Tim. I know Tim well.
Oh yes, that's his name.
Tim sent me on. He sent me on a challenge, because sometimes groups do that. They say to me, we've got a location that we do events on. We challenge you as the ghost challenger to go along and be there on your own in that building. And Tim's been very good, because Tim is excellent at doing videos, and he's kind of, when I've done my ghost challenge, he's kind of edited them for me. He's given his time to do that. And he's great, Tim. And Pig's Paranormal Intelligence Gathering Service, fantastic team. You know, they come up with some really good balanced you know, conclusions and that. And then Wayne is in charge of Essex Paranormal, and they do events. So again, Wayne is now doing my videos, but you know, so yeah, I know of Pigs.
Yeah, we had. I used to.
Am I hearing things? Are you calling them pigs?
That's what they call themselves.
That's what they call themselves.
Only a policeman could get away with that.
Yeah, it's quite unique that they call themselves pigs. You know, after the police, that was quite.
Yeah.
I always remember we used to, on my old station I was on years ago, the KTBF used to carry an advert at the end of our shows for his equipment, and it was a really good advert. Like, you know, almost the show wasn't complete without his advert right at the very end of the spooky.
Yeah.
Is he still doing the equipment? Is he still selling it?
He does still do that, yeah. And, you know, I go there often if I want to get any equipment. I tend to, I mean, like Tim, I think Tim's the same as anyone else, that he's kind of like, looks at it with a, you know, the equipment's there, but, you know, is it actually doing the job, you know? We're all looking at it with a bit sceptical mind now. But Yeah, he definitely does still do that. So that's great.
That's excellent. So you trust the equipment that I've seen that we've used that came from pigs. I mean, many years ago, I'm not going to name the person, but there was a guy who was selling equipment, and a friend of mine who's a bit sort of technical with electronic wizardry actually bought a couple of his bits and pieces and opened them up and said they don't do anything. Random flashing lights. Literally, that's all they were doing there. Random light generating, these little numbers are flashing up. I mean, it's complete fake rubbish.
Well, a warning to people about K2 meters, isn't it? Because there is the fake ones out there.
Oh God, absolutely, yeah.
You only got to look at the sticker on the K2 meter and compare it to an official one, and you can see a big difference sometimes.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, people do prey on us, and they do prey on people, because it's one of those things. It's like you can't prove it works or doesn't work. You can't prove a ghost exists or not. So you're kind of stuck in that middle land. Well, it could be a genuine piece of equipment that's actually doing something, or it could be a complete piece of nonsense, and that's But yeah, certainly the pig stuff, well, I've tried out over the years. Absolutely 100% brilliant stuff, definitely. And there are other manufacturers out there, I should say that, of course. It's not really fair to isolate one particular one. But yeah, it's worth checking around when you're looking for good equipment to use. And that's one of the places I would recommend, certainly.
Oh, that's good. So, go to pigs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm lost here now. I'm lost with this conversation. Castles. Which castles have you done, Tim?
The castle I did. Do you know I've gone and forgot the name of it? It's in Wales. The well-known one in Wales. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, where they got the oblet.
Oh, that. Yeah. That's not a real castle, though, is it?
No, it's not a big castle. I mean, I've not done big castles, to be honest with you. I am going to be doing some in 2019, along with Richard Felix. We're going to try and arrange something in 2019. So I'm going to be probably that's one where my big thing is going to be locked in a castle, because that would be fantastic, the history of the castle. And the thought, it's really strange because everyone has this kind of fear location. I don't know if you get that.
No.
But, like some people think, like there's a place I go where it was a nunnery, and people think, oh, nuns, that scares me to death, or churches scare me to death, or asylums scare me to death, And I find that castles do that in a way, don't they? They have that creepy kind of psychological thing that you're going in a castle. I mean, I'd love to go to Transylvania and do the castle over there. Which would
Dracula's castle.
Yeah,
I know a couple of people have done that place twice. Actually. It's my old friends from the KTPF show, and they said it was fantastic. It really was.
I can imagine.
There's not a lot happened, but just the atmosphere of the place. It's just brilliant, because it's Castle Dracula pretty much. Although, of course, the Dracula itself is a myth, but Vlad Impaler is the guy, of course, who was there, and it's got an amazing atmosphere to it.
Well, there's a woman that's doing some of the folklore on the vampire, where it came from, a lot of the myths over there that Bram Stoker based on, and some of the stories over there. And she's gone around doing this, and she's on YouTube. I forget her name, but it will be on my website, because I'm going to interview her and get a few stories on that. Because again, all that kind of folklore does interest you, I think, sometimes when you do what we do. One thing leads to another kind of thing.
It's become one of my passions is with folklore mythology. I've written a book a little while ago on sort of witchcraft folklore, and this was published a while back, and it's become a real fascination for me as well. I mean, I kind of stepped back a bit from active investigating, partly because I've been everywhere, so you kind of know where you need to go. But the background, the history, and that kind of stories, that I find absolutely fascinating now. So is there anywhere that you, apart from mentioning Dracula, of course, you would love to go you've not been to yet?
I think if I wanted to go somewhere, it would be, say, Tower of London, somewhere like that. One of the big places like that would be. I've not done the Edinburgh Vaults, and I'd love to do that. And I know a lot of people do ghost hunts. Yeah, have you done that?
Already, yes. I can have a bit of a claim to fame now. My investigation group was the very first ever to investigate the Edinburgh Vaults. There were 6 of us, and the guy from Cat Tours who owned it at the time, we paid £6 for the whole night each.
Yeah.
That was it. And that's the video footage I mentioned.
And what would it cost tonight?
It's about £2,000 for until 2 a.m.
Oh, £2,000.
Yeah.
Well, look, if you want to spend out that money, you can come to my house.
Well,
You can stay the night at my house.
Christmas pudding.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. We were falling
You
down.
have my Christmas pudding, you won't leave, I tell you.
The video footage I mentioned back at the beginning, recorded purely by accident by my wife, was at the Edinburgh Vaults. And I will have to put a link up on our station where you can view it, because it's on. I put it on YouTube.
The interest, yeah.
I'll send you the link as well and have a look at it. And as I say, it was just purely by chance. But if you know the vaults or not, basically you've got one entrance in and out. And it's like a big circle, basically, the chambers around each other.
It's the Edinburgh Vaults. Is that same as St Mary's Close? It is,
no, it's a different location. St Mary's Close opened a few years afterwards. The Edinburgh Vaults themselves are actually in one of the main bridges over, because you know Edinburgh, of course, there's a lot. The Golden Mile. There's a couple of bridges. It's inside one of those, and it's a series of small-ish chambers that look like man-made caves, effectively, but they are completely man-made. And we were in one section to basically the right of where my wife was filming. She was filming straight down the main corridor into the big back rooms. Now, there's no other way in or out other than the door that's behind her up the stairs. There was no lights on. It was completely pitch black. She's filming in infrared, and the entire team were in one of these side rooms, all 6 of us. My wife was not there.
Sure.
She was filming for about 10 minutes, and then she said she felt a bit spooked, so she turned the camera off and joined us. It was only looking at the footage afterwards, actually waiting for our flight back to London, because it had been delayed by a couple of hours, watching the video footage. You see the rear wall, that shadow kind of rises and moves across. It's not incredibly distinct, but you can see it's the shape of a person. And there's nobody in the room. There's no one between her and the back wall for the camera light to be sort of bouncing off to create the shadow effect.
Amazing, yeah.
The professional film cameraman have a look at it. He said, I can't explain this because you have to have a person to create that shadowing. And he spotted what I'd missed. In one of the side corridors, just before you see the figure, there's a dark shape, like a dark mist, if you like, or just a darkness, in a doorway, then the figure on the back wall. So it's as if they've moved from one point to the other.
Yeah.
Noticed the first one, and it was like, blimey. Really pleased with that. And that was the Edinburgh Vaults and that first ever investigation there. I mean, the Mercat used to actually have our video footage on their website, which you could view it there, but because it changed hands several times now and it's no longer available.
And I wonder if they do get that now, because often you start off at these places traditionally, and then these places get hammered to death, don't they? With
absolutely.
Different events and things like that. And you may well have caught the most fascinating footage you'll ever get in that area,
Very probably, I must admit.
Yeah, I think the ghosts have probably got sick and tired of the people that have gone there since, afterwards.
Well, it's said by a lot of people, with investigations, you can do the same place over and over and over again, and eventually it just completely wears it out, literally.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. But if you go back to what I was saying before about the idea of being energy, then you've got entropy, of course. Energy's running down. It's been worn out, like a battery losing its power. It needs to be put back on recharge and left alone for a while.
Well, that's what people say, don't they? They say that with a spirit, they said it that it, after a while, it couldn't think of the word then. But
dissipates.
That's what happened, that's what occurs, and that's why we don't see ghosts going back so far back in time, or because often people say to you, okay, right, you've got a Victorian ghost, how come we haven't got a prehistoric man ghost going around anywhere, or stuff like that? And
although I can actually give you a little story about that kind of experience that was definitely something much, much older. I did a little basically a tour of a few locations, like yourself really, but it was just in the space of a week. We went to 5 or 6 different locations around mainly the West Country, and one place we went to was called Pendle Hill, which is not far from Glastonbury. It's about 3 miles from it, and at the top of the hill is an Iron Age fort, a hill fort that's just sort of sit there. And for a while it was quite mysterious, because if you saw it from the air, it looked like Jesus's face. I'm not joking. The way the trees had grown and been cut down, and it's all part of what's called the Glastonbury Zodiac, which some people believe is a zodiac that's laying out across the landscape around Glastonbury. Whether it's there or not is a matter of debate, but it was certainly part of it. And there was a figure. A few of us saw it and picked it up sensed it and could see a dark figure that was walking along the edges of the Iron Age fort, and that we all got the feeling it was absolutely ancient. You know, it wasn't. That was the thing that we were kind of aware of. That you didn't see a person; it was just like a blob almost. That was along. Like it's such a long time; it lost its form and shape, but yet it was still there. And we all felt the same kind of thing, that it was something very, very old. It wasn't a recent phenomenon at all.
I mean, that's something interesting, because people sometimes say that about shadow people. You know, when you see shadow people, is it that they've lost the features? Have they lost all the, or can you no longer define that spirit or ghost as a person because of the fact that the energy has changed and time has changed? And who knows? I mean, the other thing that,
or are they from the future, just viewing us?
I mean, there's all these different things. I mean, people are coming up now with, is there any connection to UFOs and all that kind of thing? And we don't know.
No, we don't fully know. But I did find that on a lot of the investigations that I'd done, there had been UFO activity in the area.
Oh, I'm very much.
I'm investigating a haunting and find out that there's UFO connected as well.
The opinion we are talking about different observations of the same phenomena, and I'm very much of that kind of belief that the standard description of what a ghost is or standard UFOs don't really kind of work. That it's the same phenomena appearing in different forms, sort of the other, if you like, the otherness that's out there. That's going a bit deep now. But that's my kind of thinking, rather than traditional ghosts or sort of the dead people of the past. It's more going on there, I think, and the idea that, as we say about entropy and these things kind of decaying away in time, fits the whole idea of this manifestations of energy that we're actually dealing with, which I find absolutely fascinating.
Or is it dimensions falling over one another?
Who knows? I mean, again, it's a possibility. Yeah. We accept almost with ease the idea that ghost is a dead person who's come back from heaven or wherever, that aliens are spaceships from other planets. But just because we've accepted those as being the explanation doesn't mean that, one, they're correct, or two, the idea of multidimensional as being any more strange. Just because we accept something that in itself is a bit strange, therefore other theories must be stranger, can't be right. But because we're so used to believing accepting those particular ideas, they become normalised. But when you think about it, I mean, I've had the conversation with UFO people in the past. Any UFO from another planet has travelled that far is breaking the fundamental laws of the universe in terms of space travel and speed. It's doing what is effectively impossible. That is incredible.
Unless it's coming through a black hole or...
Well, this is the idea for this
dimension. Yeah.
Exactly. Why would that be any stranger? Why is it any less possible than travelling past the speed of light, which is supposed to be completely impossible?
I mean, all these things, and all these things come under the word paranormal, don't they? Because they cannot be explained by sciences, so they are things that are questionable.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing again about the way we've divided topics up. I mean, people modern times talk about slender men or shallow people. Probably the same phenomenon. Slender Man's made up, but these shallow people and hat men, they're probably the same phenomena that people have seen for hundreds of years, but they're appearing differently now because of our belief systems, our ideas to identify them. I mean, with my research in the book I wrote, I learned a lot of sort of folk tales and ghost stories, and they're much scarier back in those days. These things were seen as much more sinister, much darker, much more sort of potentially evil, but then that would fit in with the belief systems of the time,
Exactly.
Of Christianity and the Bible. You've got to see these things as inherently evil anyway, therefore they seem to present as evil. Whereas today we see them more benign because you don't have that belief system behind it. I'm sorry, I'm all get like this.
No, because I read a lot of, Chris French's anomalistic psychology.
Yes.
And that does kind of go on to a lot of that as well, and people's perceptions and how people interpret things and see things now. And I think there's a lot to be looked into on that. It's certainly worth investigating that more and seeing if that sometimes throws an answer to a lot of things, and explains
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Right, okay, carry on.
Yeah.
You are, Rena.
I'm just sitting here listening to you two, eating cheesy biscuits. And,
now we're jealous.
yeah.
Now I understand what Mark was telling me earlier on today. I get it now. Right, fair enough.
What was he saying? Come on, tell me what. What was the little pilchard saying?
Nothing really, I promise you.
Oh dear.
So, what are your sort of future plans then, Richard? What do you see happening next?
Well, I'm going to carry on doing my challenges. I mean, I was doing a thing every Christmas and called it My Nightmare Before Christmas a little bit after the movie.
So you got very muffled there for a second.
Yeah, so I got my name from that. So
you've gone very muffled, Richard.
Can you hear me now?
That's better. Yeah. Just say it a bit again.
So I'm thinking of doing some more challenges, and My Nightmare Before Christmas, that's what I call it, doing that at Christmas, but also doing it more often in the year. Going to be doing a few charity events.
Oh, wow.
And also I'm working very slowly on the idea of a book with all my world travels, because I've still got places to go. I've got New Orleans I'm going in 2020, so I'm still going to go around and collect a few stories from around the world and then put it all together.
Yeah, New Orleans is well haunted.
Oh yeah,
absolutely well haunted, that place. And something is a voodoo witch or something in one of the graveyards.
Yeah,
which is a pretty famous story, but I've forgotten it because I'm a div.
I think the thing is, I think it's amazing when you do all over the world. And one thing that I find as well is when you even go to some of the Islamic countries, you go to Oman and places like that, they have this belief in the jinn, you know? And that's to a lot of people with Islam, that's to them, that explains, you know, for their faith, that's their answer to what a ghost is, you know? And it's intriguing just to see different cultures and different ways they interpret these things. And are we all kind of leading to the same conclusion in the end, you know?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because their belief is that these jinn actually live like families.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they eat, they have their own homes, they eat food and crazy, absolutely crazy. But then again, like you say, it's their culture, it's what they believe in. And, you know, nearest I've ever got to jinn is Genie in the bottle thing. Do you remember that television show?
Oh, yeah. I remember that well, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where Andy's got to.
Anyway.
There he is. There he is. Yeah. So, what is the most scariest thing? Have you ever been frightened?
I always say to people that the day that I see a full
bodied apparition.
Yeah, bodied apparition in front of me, I don't know how I'm going to react because we're human, aren't we? And we've not yet passed on to the world and know the answers. And you know, it's going to be strange. It's going to be, and how am I going to? So when I do the challenge, everyone's there hoping, I think, that that's going to happen. And, you know, and my hair's going to get even greyer and whiter than it is. I wish it goes the other way. That would be quite unique. But, you know.
Don't we all?
Yeah. But, no, I think I have been scared, yeah. It was funny. The more you do this and nothing happens, you get sometimes a strange feeling of false security. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing a challenge and it's been quite a quiet evening, nothing's happened, nothing's been thrown at you, you haven't been dragged physically, you do get quite, I'll go and do the next one. But when it happens, you know, because as yet I've not been dragged across the floor, you know, pushed.
Well, that is very rare. That is very rare. I've been seeing stuff all my life, and so far I've not been dragged across the floor yet either.
I mean, I will say for people who are listening, I mean, it's sometimes your intentions, and people say to me, you know, you've got to be very careful on your own. I say, yeah. And I always go with good intentions, and I think that's the important thing, because we don't understand a lot of this. And I work with mediums who claim to know that they know, and I believe. I've got no reason to disbelieve them. And I've seen people that have done rescue work and stuff, because I want to know everything. I want to know the whole subject so that I'm aware of everything. Because to me, it's no good me talking to people about it and not having a clue about one area of it,
Yeah.
Did you experience anything, if you're allowed to even talk about it, but did you experience anything sort of unusual in your previous profession, as it were, as a policeman?
Well, other people told me stories. Other officers told me they had seen things, and they were very keen to... I mean, a lot of policemen become paranormal investigators. So they did tell me stories. I myself didn't, but they told me of been out on patrol and seeing strange figures at night. And, when people think of, that could be because you're sleep deprivation. Policemen are obviously 999 people, so they're alert all night, so very unlikely they're going to have sleep deprivation. So it was quite interesting that they told me those stories. And also I've had people from the military that, I mean, you'd think people that have been out in Iraq and terrible things they've been through, the last thing they'd be thinking about is paranormal when they come back. But a lot of military do get involved and want to get answers and have experienced paranormal.
I can understand that, because there are situations involving life or death, and then the question of, is there more after death? What is it? Would bring that into their mind. I'll just briefly tell you a little story about a military individual. Probably doesn't mind me telling the story, but I used to be involved with the Ghost Public Events Company, and we did a place called Woodchester Mansion, which I'll ask you about in a minute. But at Woodchester, it is quite a haunted location. Lots of strange things have happened.
Oh yeah.
And on one particular occasion, we had a group standing in the little chapel area, and there was a guy there who was actually on leave. He was a Royal Marine. He was actually on leave. He was there with his girlfriend and a couple of her mates. He wasn't really a believer at all. And a door slammed. Now, it was quite a windy night, so the chance it was just the wind. He'd screamed quite a high-pitched voice and rang slam into the wall beside him. Almost knocked himself out. And he was so embarrassed afterwards. He just said, I can't believe it. I'm never going to live this down. He said he did a very high-pitched scream and just turned around into the wall. Fortunately, he didn't hurt himself or anything. He just sort of banged into it. But he was probably the last person you'd imagine to get freaked out like that. But he really did spook him. It's just quite funny. But have you ever been to Woodchester Mansion?
No, that's another place I haven't been.
Absolutely must.
Andy, sorry, Richard. Andy, didn't you see a pair of legs at Woodchester Mansion? No, it was a fort, wasn't it?
That was my very first experience at Coal House Fort here in Essex, my very first experience. But I have seen many things at Woodchester. It was a place that I did practically, every weekend pretty much for almost a whole year, often twice in the whole weekend when I was working at Fright Night. So I lost count of the number of events I did there. It is one of those places, if you get a chance to get in there, Richard, you must, because it really is. It is quite the circus of the paranormal, so many different things in different rooms. It's well worth going to.
Yeah, it's definitely on my to-do list. With the Ghost Challenger as well, I've been in talks with them, and they've been quite accommodating. They've been quite accommodating and talking about that.
Sorry, Richard, I'm very muffled.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, that's it. Is the microphone kind of moving?
Yeah, because it's really weird because I'm not moving it at all. Where it's getting tired of my voice tonight.
It's my energy, darling. Don't worry about it. It's too much Christmas pudding.
Yeah, but I definitely want to. That's on my to-do list to do. Definitely.
Yeah, Woodchester Mansion's the one that was never ever completed, isn't it?
That's the place, absolutely.
And the workmen all down tools and ran off.
No, they didn't run off. They down tools because the tools belonged to the guy, William Lee, who's having it built, and he ran out of money. Basically, is
that the truth?
Oh yeah, I'm afraid there's a lot of rumours.
Oh, you see, I'm only going on most haunted events. The fact that they, they down tools, they ran off, never to be seen again. Their tools were left there.
Often that is
where they left them.
Yeah,
absolutely. They were left because they belonged to the guy who built.
Yeah, and they plague burial ground outside that doesn't exist apparently, but
not.
they had young people. Well, they had people camped out there in tents and what a load of.
Yeah, often you do get that. You get the stories are completely fabricated to what the actual truth is, and it's such a shame, sometimes because.
But it's all about getting bums on seats, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Excuse me. Anywhere else that really sort of leaps out that you'd love to investigate that you've had a chance yet?
I think I don't know really, because I think there's so many really that I would still like to go, and I'm still quite intrigued to, because I'm doing it as a solo challenge. That's what I'm looking at. If I was going there, as with a group, I mean, I've done a lot of that. So because it's a bit unique because you're on your own. There are so many that I'd love to just do as a challenge. I mean, I was lucky to do a place in Australia called the Quarantine Station in Manly, and that was a fantastic location. It's where they used to put people, when they were doing the immigration.
Yeah.
People had to stay there whilst the quarantine was done, and that was a wonderful place. And they let me go around there and do places. So I guess I'd like to do a lot more places abroad.
What about the Queen Mary?
Oh, that would be one. Yeah, definitely. I think that's on a lot of people's to-do list. Yeah.
What about Buckingham Palace?
Now that would be interesting. I mean, when I was in Washington, I spoke to one of the guides at Washington. I said, "Are there any truths about the ghosts in Washington D.C.?" And the guide there was telling me, "You're very true. Winston Churchill's been seen a lot, and all these various things have been seen in the, and a lot of presidents have seen his figure there, and they've
isn't it strange how they're always the famous ghosts?"
Yeah.
That's why Anne Boleyn's been out there too, hasn't she?
Yeah. But I must admit, I was with him. I kind of thought, well, it's something they don't usually will advertise about Washington D.C. because they wouldn't want those kind of people. So it was kind of, maybe there's something in this,
Yeah.
When they're talking about the Tower of London and big places like that, then of course you're going to get those names because they'll want the tourism,
Yeah, I should imagine there's a lot of activity goes on in the tower because of the amount of bloodshed there.
Yeah.
And the sadness and imprisonment and things like that. Buckingham Palace, yes, it's meant to have a ghost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's another old queenie trotting around or
There is
who it is, actually.
There is that rather famous photograph, isn't there, on the staircase? The figure almost seems to be draped over the stairs. It's that one arm seems to be very long. So I remember reading it's.
Oh, yeah.
I think of that photograph. Because I remember reading an article a while ago for some analysis that's been done, enhancements, to try and see what it is. And it certainly looks like the classic ghost in a sheet, sort of leaning on the railings, and arms sort of stretched out, with the arms far too long for an ordinary human being. And
well, they say Camilla's seen a ghost, don't they? That she's seen a ghost.
Has she?
No Prince Charles jokes there, but
Princess Di,
but she has she has seen ghosts in the so interest. I mean, if we could interview those people, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? Just
Well, I certainly think a lot more people do see anomalous phenomena of various kinds and either don't realise what they're watching or they do and don't tell anybody. I'm absolutely certain that a lot of people... I mean, one of the things I often used to notice on these events was people would say, I've come with my wife, girlfriend, friend, whatever. I don't really believe in ghosts, but I had this one time where this thing happened and they tell you a ghost story. You think, well, you don't believe it, but you just tell me a ghost story.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, it's one of those things that don't people take the mickey out of them or think they're sort of strange, so they don't say anything, but they have odd experiences they don't talk about.
I mean, sure, there is things like hallucinations when you go to sleep and when you're awake. So there's things where you've got to look at things that could explain it. But
Well, I've actually done a lot of research on the sleep paralysis phenomena with hypnagogic dreaming, which people often think they're being attacked by ghosts or demons, monsters in the night, where it's often the body's paralysed itself and you're having these very powerful dreams that you don't realise are actually dreams. But yeah, so I'm always a bit suspicious of anyone tells you a ghost story that starts off with them waking up in the middle of the night and saying, it's when they actually are out and about and there's warm, this thing appears. Those are the ones I find most fascinating. And why are you dismissing me because I was falling asleep? But I know, I mean, I'm a psychotherapist, I know a lot about how the mind works, and how waking up and falling asleep is actually a very complex process that can go wrong easily and cause all sorts of odd phenomena. So I'm always questioning of stuff when people wake up in the middle of the night and see X, Y, Z at the end of the bed. But if they're out on a location or they're out visiting somewhere, it's daylight, or even it's night time, but they know full well they're fully wide awake and they have a strange experience, those are the ones I find the most fascinating.
Same.
So, Richard.
Yeah.
What about demonic stuff? Have you ever been anywhere where it's known to be demonic stuff and you felt something really, really strange, eerie, evil?
It's rare, but I did come across every time when I do, and this is a warning to people, I think, because we still don't fully understand all that. But I always said whenever I did an event, nobody gets intoxicated or takes any kind of drugs or anything else.
Keeps away from the Christmas pudding, you mean?
Yeah. And I do know one occasion where somebody, it got quite frightening. They almost went into what seemed to be like a full possession, but then we couldn't be careful if it wasn't a medical emergency. So we took all precautions, I mean, I think, it's something again that, the thing is the church is very strong in emphasizing about the devil and evil and all that, and I get put off because I was brought up in a very religious background, and I know that a lot of those thoughts kind of led to a lot of the persecutions of innocent women, So I'm very, very dubious with it. But at the same,
absolutely with you there. I mean, I cringe at the word demonic possession. To me, it's just nonsense.
Well,
it doesn't happen.
I mean,
it is a man-made word, isn't it? Demon.
Yeah, exactly. And I would go more for somebody being a little bit more not stable. Shouldn't probably go on a ghost hunt or an investigation. Absolutely. A bit more gullible. Then maybe use the word attachment. But is there such a thing as attachment? Who knows? I mean, we don't really know. There's that poor woman that I forget her name now. It was a famous demonic possession, wasn't it? And the poor woman was starved to death.
Forget the case as well. I know the case you're talking about. Clear evidence that she was mentally ill to begin with. That was ignored. It was, the medical profession saying she needs help in that way, and because her family were very religious, they didn't know we want help with the priest because this is a demon. It's like that was our explanation for mental illness until fairly recently, really. We had so little understanding of how the human mind and brain work that anything odd like that was seen as being demonic or evil. But we know now so much more that it really is a time to put that idea to bed. But you get it a lot in American TV programs, unfortunately. They do like to go for that demonic angle because it seems to get a bigger audience, which is a real shame. But I think they know they're pushing an agenda that's not entirely accurate, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, but that's it, isn't it? Out in America, it's all demons, but over here, it's more ghosts. Very few demons.
It's not part of our culture so much. That's
no. I mean, I say to people, if there is, if there's a genuine ghost, then they're like us people, and surely there's going to be a nasty individual like there was, like in life, as in death, but just a nasty individual, maybe,
Absolutely.
But thank goodness all that is rare, and made for TV.
Yes, that's the key. It's for a TV audience, they're there for their consumption. Speaking of which, do you watch much of this sort of stuff on TV, or do you bother?
No, I avoid it like a plague. People I know tell me, that I sometimes take out to the events of, I watched so and so, and I say, okay, we'll try not to get bogged down with it too much. Remember what we're learning and stuff. And then I find out they're kind of mimicking or thinking like them on TV. And you know, even if I watched it, I wouldn't follow them. But I've just got no interest. I think it's a little bit. And also, when you do this, it is a little bit like a doctor taking his own medicine. You know, I find my wife is totally and utterly skeptic on everything, and she keeps me grounded on that. But I also think that once I come away from the paranormal, I don't want to watch it on TV. Do you know what I mean?
It bores the arse off you, doesn't it? Watching it on TV.
I think also when you've spent a lot of time having first-hand experiences, watching a bunch of people with cameras running around, supposedly holding location with their cameras,
or squealing.
What's that? Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like how many years?
Men squealing, women squealing. They're all squealing.
How many years has a vet Philly been doing this? Yet you still scream at a ghost. It's like, you know, it's almost on cue, isn't it? And I'll scream. It's expected of me now, so I'm bound to scream.
But I admire you, Richard, going and sitting in these cold old places on your own.
Yeah,
a lot of them must be freezing.
They are, and you know, sometimes when I do it this time of year, winter, it's probably the worst time to do it. You know, so you know,
you get the most number of hours of darkness to work with. We do a ghost investigation in the summer, you get like 3 hours and the sun's up again. So
exactly, yeah.
That's on your Facebook page. You've got some series of videos on. I can't remember the name of the place now that you've just been recently doing.
Yeah, the Clan. You're going to get me to say it again. The Clan Kayak Fall Manor, and that's me. My stepdad was Welsh, so you'll probably, if he was alive, he would kick me for that. So
he more than likely will, because anything that starts with clan is a double L over here.
Yeah.
The castle near me is Clonstefan.
That's correct. Well, yeah, that's on the Facebook page. Yeah, you can see that, and they can go from my website to see it.
But that looks a fantastic place.
It is. It really is. And it's what fascinated me again was the amount of history that they're trying to preserve in that place, and they're talking about the witches' marks that they found in the timber, and you know, a lot of these marks were there for various reasons, and the boots and the shoes they found in the in the walls, and you know, it's so much more to the place because they got the museum next to it, and I highly recommend it just as a day out, just to go there and, you know, to visit. Yeah.
No, the actual history of the place. You know, I love those floors and the wood and everything. I just love it.
Yeah.
I love flagstone floors.
I do.
Yeah. I nearly bought a place actually down in, where was it? It was down Devon way. Can't remember the name of the place now. It was an old manor house, and it was it dated back 13th century or something like that. Yeah. And that all had flagstone floors, but my husband said it needed too much work doing to it. He said it's falling down, Irene. And do you know why? One of the reasons why we didn't buy it, because we were not allowed by law to put a 6-foot fence round it or something or other, because of some footpath or something or other. And it was the dog. I had one of them dogs that kept escaping, so we didn't buy it in the end.
The problem was it wasn't flagstone flooring, they were roof tiles sort of fallen down.
Oh no, there was a really big flagstones, and when you walked in the dining room, wooden panels. Oh, it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And, you know, in those days, I'm going back, my boys were young then. They're getting to middle age now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think
houses
it is.
Were a lot cheaper then.
I think it is. I mean, these places are lovely. You know, they're fascinating. I've gone down to Cornwall, and going down to Cornwall's like going back in time. It's a fantastic, you know, so even though I've gone all over the world, every time I come back to the UK and think, we've got so much history in this, you know, here, Scotland, Wales, we've got the history, and you know, we've still got fantastic locations.
Yeah. You've only got to drive along the road and you see these beautiful places, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the architecture and everything.
But mind you, saying
It's
that,
so lucky.
I went to a very modern pub.
Did you?
And it was in a quite a roughish area, and it was a modern pub, and that was where I saw what could have been an apparition. So people are like, oh, go to these old buildings, and it doesn't mean that,
Absolutely.
And I was in this pub. I mean, the girl was sat there, and they were doing what was a séance, and I thought she'd got up and gone to the side of me, and she looked at me and said, oh, you've seen her. I thought, well, I've definitely seen what looked like a female go past and go to this wall bit, which used to be a doorway. So, that was interesting. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's the thing, is that you can have a modern building, but you have to ask the question of what was on the site before.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, just going back briefly to Woodchester Mansion, that's one of the things. It's definitely the second building on the same site. There was a place called Spring House. And one of the figures that's been seen is a woman in white, which is a common ghost, I know, but she appears to be on the stairs, but not quite on the stairs. She's almost like in the staircase. And if you look at the plans of the old building, the staircase is in roughly the same spot, but one's sort of flat, sort of more of a less of an incline and wider. So she appears to be walking on the original stairs of Spring House before Woodchester was even built.
Well, it's like when you said about a pair of legs, isn't it? You would see the legs, and they would be on the level that they would have been originally on. And
well, I'll briefly tell you the story that Arlene was alluding to. It was my first ever ghostly experience. I'm sorry, listeners, if you heard me tell this story 1,000 times, but just very briefly. I was about 10, 11, 12 years old, around that kind of age, and there's a country park near where I live. And in the middle of the country park was Coalhouse Fort, which was a fort built in the Napoleonic times originally, then built up more in the First World War and built more in the Second World War. Yeah. But it was quite dilapidated. It was actually quite dangerous in parts, and was falling down. And it had corrugated iron all the way around to keep people out. But there were lots of gaps in the fence. It was easy to get into it. And there's a large courtyard in the middle, and myself and brother and a few other kids were in there basically just playing football together. And I looked up and clocked two men walking past. The first thing I saw was just the legs, but the whole body was there when I looked up. Two men in what appeared to be an old uniform, just walking no more than 10, 15 feet from me, walked past and go off in another part of the fort. And I looked at them and I looked round and thought, no one else has seen them. And I looked back to where they were and they were gone. Yeah. I saw them for a good few seconds, and they were as clear as day, as solid. I can see them now, thinking about it, this is like 40 years ago. Clear as day, solid. And after I did a bit of research, there were men in World War I uniform, because they had like this webbing that goes like a bandaging that goes around the lower half of the leg that gets it quite tight closed in. So there were First World War soldiers walking past me. Now I know, and I've done ghost investigations there since, never seen the figures again, but I know from my history research of the place that it was used a lot in the First World War, and did indeed shoot down a Zeppelin. So there were men stationed there. No one died there, but there were men definitely stationed there, and the guns were operational. But it was as clear as anything. It was just these two men. As I say, it's the sort of thing that you might dismiss as being just your imagination or just somebody dressed up, because it was just solid people walking past. There was no sound. That was the thing I did notice. There was no sound with them whatsoever, but they just walked past. I looked down, looked up and thought, that's strange, and they were gone. But it was real, and now it opens up for like reenactment societies, but in those days, we're talking about the 70s, it was just completely shut down. There was no access, supposedly, because us kids got in there, and it was just amazing. That was the first ever experience I had.
Maybe it was residual energy.
Well, it's just this amazing replay of an event. It was obviously just a day in the life of two men stationed there during the First World War, around that time frame. There was no kind of noise, there was no sound, it was just the two walking past, and even conversation, but it was the legs, you see, that's what really struck my mind. It was the first thing I saw, and I thought, well, that's weird.
Oh, you just had a glimpse into the past.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, just a time slip, a window into the past.
Like I have them.
This is the thing that people always question: is it residual energy? Is it just a recording inside? Is it, I mean, then we got intelligent hauntings where they react to you, like in a poltergeist kind of situation where things will be thrown at you, or if you ask them to do things, they will do things. Again, that's kind of rare, but that does happen as well, or has been known to happen. I've been to an old place and, said, make a noise, like, you try not to copy anything on TV, but, that's how you do it. You ask out. And sometimes we will get reactions. So it's an interesting concept, isn't it? This is it a recording? What about this intelligent haunting?
That is the funny thing. It is that, I get to a point where you really are clear in your mind about the idea of residual recording, of seeing events of the past, etc. But when they start to respond, you think, what are we dealing with now? It's almost, it's one of those things that, just going back to thought of events in the past, that kind of happens. Something starts to occur. There's almost like a communication, and then often you just freeze, or they just sort of vanish, almost as if. Now, I'll just briefly tell you a story of a friend of mine, which he told on when I interviewed him for my old show. I won't bother naming people because it's not really fair on him because he's not here to talk about it. But he's absolutely believed this guy 100%. He's a writer and a researcher. He was in a library in London doing some research and some old documents which he'd had brought down from stories to work through. And so he was sitting at one of the desks in the library. There's no one else about, and he looked up, and this gentleman kind of walked past him and then stopped and looked at him in a strange look of astonishment at my friend. And my friend said the way he was dressed was just not right. It was like a very old-fashioned suit. And my friend looked up and was just as astonished at him. The guy then walked off. And a little while after, the classic question he asked a member of staff, who's the guy in the dark brown suit, where it was? He said, no one looks like that works here. No one at all. And there's no one in the building at that point who could be explained as being the figure my friend saw. He almost appeared from nowhere, walked past, looked at each other in total astonishment at each other, and the guy walked off. So the guy was clearly seeing him as well as him seeing the guy.
Yeah. So
both having the reaction of, what the hell's that,
Yeah, so it's almost as if he was haunting him.
Yeah, exactly. Two-way time slip.
Like a time slip, almost. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting. Like I said, I've had quite a few of those. But I've spoken about them before on the radio, so I'm not going to bore anyone with them anymore. So what's your next thing you're up to then, Richard?
A few more radio broadcasts in January, but for now I'm going to relax, enjoy Christmas, enjoy my dog Flo, the Chihuahua, and Sarah, my wife. We're going to have a lovely, relaxed Christmas and just chill out.
Chill out. That's the way to be. That's the way to be. And people, Richard is going to be having a show on the Paranormal UK radio network with us very, very soon, we hope.
Excellent.
Am I right there, Richard?
Hopefully that's going to be, definitely. That is something I'm working on as well,
Okay, have you got a name for it yet?
Not yet. No, it's probably,
how about the Ghost Challenger?
I think we're going to keep. I think we're going to keep to the Ghost Challenger.
That would make sense.
It's going to be,
Well, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay, so what's happening in the next couple of weeks? Like I say, Mark is not going to be around, and I'm going to be free. So, and Andy's going to be with me, aren't you, Andy?
I am indeed. For the next few weeks, I should be joining you on this year, the flagship. So it's an all-English flagship for the time being.
Yes, it is. Oh, yes.
The Brits are taking over for now.
Yep, the Brits have got it now. Not getting it back there, Mark Johnson, see?
We'll see about that.
All right, then. So, Richard, it's been fantastic having you on.
Can I just say, if they want to get hold of me as well, my website is www.theghostchallenger.co.uk.
I was just coming to that one.
Oh, you were? But thank you for having me on.
So repeat it again.
Yeah, www.theghostchallenger.co.uk.
.co.uk, and you'll be able to catch up on everything that Richard's been doing, people.
Are you also on Facebook?
I am. There's a Facebook page. If they look up the Ghost Challenger on Facebook, I mean, the website directs them to it. Excellent. But if they give me some likes, all of the social media be on there as well. I'm on Twitter as well, but I think it's at @rcase666, because that's all I could get on my Twitter handle, which is probably very apt. But that's they can look me up there as well.
Mm-hmm. And Richard, get on and write that book.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm sure that will sell very, very well. A book like that.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. No, I know I'll buy it for a start.
Thank you. And a bit of Christmas pudding. There'll be.
I tell you what, whoever eats my Christmas pudding's not going to be able to move afterwards. It's the first time I've ever done it.
I just have to lie down in a darkened room.
Sounds very nice.
I cannot cook. I'm hopeless. I burn boiled eggs.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
I really can't cook, but he bought me a cookbook, and he bought me a mixer, a food mixer. So I'm having a go. I'm having a go this Christmas. But like I say, this Christmas pudding, or figgy pudding to some people, is going to be so heavy on the stomach. People are just not going to be able to get out the chairs.
One to avoid, I think.
Yeah, Irene's Christmas pudding. And it'll get you drunk as well, so it's a cheap way of getting boozed up.
Indeed.
Okay.
So what's on the show next week, Irene? What's the plan?
Oh, don't ask me now.
She's supposed to know these things, people.
No. Oh, wait a minute. Rob and Trish McGregor.
Oh, right. Excellent. So we can look forward to that next week.
Yeah.
Well, should we wrap things up then for the night, guys?
Yeah, I'm ready for bed.
I'm ready for several hours of editing, which will be good fun. But no, so I've got another show to put together as well for tomorrow night. So I shall have to toodle off and get those sorted out. So it will be good night from the Paranormal UK Radio this evening. Myself, Andy, and Irene, and our wonderful guest, Richard.
Okay.
And it's a good night from me. Yeah.
Yeah, and people, you can find us just about everywhere.
Of course.
All right. Night-night.